G'day trendsetters, John with Gravel Cyclist. It's been a long time coming, but this is my part 2 and final review of SRAM's eTap wireless gear shifting system. I've put the eTap system through its paces over the past 2 years here on my Ritchey Breakaway cyclocross bike, which I affectionately have dubbed my gravel travel bike, so it's not like the bicycle and its drivetrain have sat around looking pretty the entire time. I've flown this bicycle to events such as Crusher in the Tushar, Gravel Worlds, Paris to Ancaster, Almanzo 100 and the Taiwan King of the Mountain Challenge. Additionally, this bicycle has been flown around other parts of the United States and also on gravel training rides around my USA home base of Gainesville, Florida. This bike and its drivetrain have encountered all sorts of weather conditions, good, bad and nasty, but the drivetrain is still going very strong. So first up, I'm going to cover the negatives of the SRAM eTap wireless gear shifting system. Battery life. I haven't measured this exactly, but generally I seem to average about 500 to 600 miles on a battery charge, or about 1,000 kilometers if you use the metric system. There are 4 batteries in total in the system. The derailleurs each have a rechargeable battery that clips onto the derailleur. So there's the battery for the rear derailleur, and there's the battery for the front derailleur. And very simple, you unclip like that. And there's the battery, you can see. And it has like a little tab, and the connector is right there, so it mates with the connector on the derailleur. Clip it back in, snap it down. That's it, done. Cell batteries inside the shifters are still going strong from 2 years of use, as indicated by the green LEDs. However, compared to Shimano's Di2 system, which uses only 1 battery and gives a much longer life, I strongly recommend you consider purchasing a spare battery for the derailleurs in your eTap system. In terms of the system sitting around idle inside my house, I always made sure to disconnect the batteries if I knew the bike was going to be in storage for quite a while. So like I demonstrated before, just lift up the tab and that's it. Very simple to put the bike away for storage. Now, one thing of note, the eTap system does have an idle or sleep mode to save on battery, and this does help preserve battery life, so it isn't like the system is continually making communication calls between its components every moment of its existence. The system has no proper method of checking the battery per se. Rather, you'll have to rely on looking at the LED status lights on the derailleur. So a green LED indicates 15 to 60 hours of ride time remaining. A red LED indicates about 5 to 15 hours of ride time remaining. And a flashing red LED means you've got less than 5 hours of ride time remaining. The Blip shifters are terrible. That's them right there. Now, they work as designed, but have horrible tactile feel to them. In fact, users of the ZX Spectrum computer from the 1980s may enjoy the membrane-like feel of the Blips, but they have to be pushed quite firm to execute a shift. Now, here is a Blip shifter that's intended to be installed on the drops as a sprint type shifter, but they just feel terrible, and they're nowhere near as good as the equivalent Shimano sprint shifters or the Shimano climbing shifters. But on the positive, there's no chance you'll ever get an accidental shift with these things. Now, during installation, you'll need to allow enough slack in the cable for the Blips when you run these underneath your handlebar tape. I'll overlay an image of what I'm talking about exactly, but if you don't install this correctly, they will unplug from the shifters and then you'll lose your Blip functionality. Now, the stock fixing bolt for the bracket that you have to purchase extra for the Blips, I've got them mounted upside down, comes with a steel bolt, and that rusts out almost immediately. I suggest you replace them with titanium, but considering how much money these little puppies cost, I think SRAM needs to lift their game and supply these with titanium as standard. The rear derailleur pulleys have been punished during this review period and finally blew up after a year of hard use. They are expensive to replace should you use the eTap OEM ceramic bearing pulleys. However, I replaced them with a much cheaper but just as good pair of ceramic bearing pulleys, which have survived the past year quite well. But remember, you don't need ceramic bearing pulleys if yours finally up and quit. The front derailleur tyre clearance issue. This will largely depend on your frame's chainstays, namely the length. On this Ritchey Breakaway cyclocross bike, I could hypothetically install a 40mm wide tyre, but with the lack of clearance because of the battery placement, this isn't really an option. As you can see here from the 700C by 38mm Panaracer Gravel Team tyre I have installed, there is almost no clearance, and if there was mud, I would be in a lot of trouble. One SRAM engineer told me at a trade show that gravel is for 1x or single chambering drivetrains, which is absolute rubbish. I'm an ardent fan of 2x, as are many other gravel cyclist types, so this is a poor response to a legitimate issue. SRAM Engineering, I sincerely hope you take this feedback and consider redesigning the front derailleur, because this is a real issue on gravel and for those who race cyclocross if they use a 2x system. The lack of a clutch, but SRAM is definitely prototyping a 1x12 eTap derailleur on the European cyclocross circuit, and I expect we'll see a version of that derailleur for 2x systems as well. It took me a while to finally detect this, but the system is slower to respond from the button push to the shift being executed versus a wired electronic system such as Di2. It's difficult to compare a wired system versus wireless, but that is the trade-off with the SRAM eTap. I love the lever shape. They fit perfectly into my hands. The brake levers feel great, and the shift buttons are super easy to actuate. Since this version of eTap was released, SRAM now has the hydraulic disc brake version of eTap. The way that eTap shifts gears, the left lever by itself shifts the rear derailleur into an easier gear, and the right lever by itself shifts the rear derailleur into a harder gear. And if you press both levers at once, it shifts the front derailleur up or down depending on its position. Incidentally, you can run eTap as a 1x system. Check out this footage from the 2017 Dirty Kanza 200. eTap is super easy to use and takes about 5 seconds to learn before it becomes second nature. People will whine and complain that there is wiring to set up during the build process of Shimano Di2 and Campagnolo EPS, but don't forget the wiring is a one-time deal only during the bike build, so it's almost a moot point. But where eTap shines is on a travel bike scenario. I only have to worry about splitting my cables in two places, the brakes and not the shifting. Finally, if you have a Garmin, Wahoo or Lazine computer with ANT Plus functionality, you can transmit gearing information to the computer from SRAM eTap. That is very cool. So it would seem the negatives outweigh the positives of SRAM eTap, but that's not the case. This system has been bomb-proof reliable, and that's the number one thing I worry about with shifting systems of any kind. If you can put up with less than stellar tyre clearance on the front derailleur, some slightly slower shifting and charging multiple batteries, then eTap is a real winner. Especially if you take a shifting system that takes advantage of the positives of electronic shifting, and by that I mean a shift lever that isn't compromised to mimic the design of a mechanical shifting lever, for example the Campy EPS electronic system. I hope you found this review to be helpful and insightful. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, and don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications of future videos. I'll see you in the next video.